中文其实只是在家里跟爸妈讲的，所以大概不够好。Let me give a little advertisement on my company first. Market Capital is one of the handful of institutional seed funds based in Los Angeles. We have $45 million for our current fund, and total about $100 million under management. We take a Silicon Valley style of investing into LA. So what does that mean? That means that we're extremely hands-on and working with our entrepreneurs in building their business, be it marketing, product, business development, and recruiting. We get our hands extremely dirty. We've been in business about 4 years now, and that means that we have a portfolio of about 55 companies. We invest in the seed and pre-seed stage. So that means that we will invest in companies with, I call it, 2 guys or 2 gals with a piece of napkin, all the way to anyone that raised less than $3 million in total venture capital. A little bit about me. Born in Taiwan, like I said. 在台北，还记得在国泰医院后面，在仁爱路4段长大的，仁爱国小。10岁的时候，我 move 到关岛，很少人住在那种地方。不过我爸是在这边开工厂，所以就移民去了。然后在关岛留了1年之后，在 Northern California， 在硅谷西台湾讲西谷，长大的。在一个 city 叫做 Saratoga. It's right next to Cupertino. So I literally grew up in the orchards of Apple and Cisco and Silicon Graphics, LSI Logic, National Semiconductors, and Intel. I went to school at Stanford, got a degree in industrial engineering, and then when I was 22 years old, so I don't even think my English was that good then. In 18 months, I raised about $55 million in venture capital and started a company called BuildPoint. It was a B2B marketplace that helped general contractors or commercial general contractors fit out their job to subcontractors. I barely knew how to build a company. I barely knew how to build a product, but I was very good at fundraising. I was very good at convincing people to give me lots and lots of money. And really, $55 million more than what I have in my fund today. So I can say I was a lot more successful when I was 22 than I am now. In 2001, when the market collapsed, so I'm sure that lots of you do not remember 2001, but the NASDAQ went down by about 70%, and the entire valley went to a deep recession. I remember about 3/4 of my friends were unemployed, and so was I. And that was because I was fired by my VCs, who told me that I was too young, too uninformed, and too inexperienced to start my company. So I spent about a year traveling out in Asia, trying to figure out what to do next. And eventually I decided to restart my career. What did that mean? That means I've worked across multiple stages of startups, everywhere from kind of 2 guys in the garage, like a company called BuildPoint, to Green Dot, which was what brought me down to LA, and that was a public company, went public about 5 years ago, I think. And then I also worked at eBay, and then eventually I was an SVP and Chief Product Officer for AT&T Interactive, which is a $1 billion division of AT&T. I like to say that I've done everything from 2 guys in the garage all the way to managing billions of dollars in revenue. And what I really love still is the formation stage of being an entrepreneur. 15 years ago, when I was raising money, when I was starting BuildPoint, starting a company was a bit of a black box. Now, I'm not sure how many of you actually get this reference here. You have to be a little bit of an Asian American, but this is my favorite cartoon. It's called South Park. And South Park has this meme that says that, how do you make money? Well, phase 1, you collect underpants. Yes, underpants. You don't move on phase 2, because that means on phase 3, you get profit. And they're called the underwear notes. And really, back in 1999, when I started my company, that's what startup was like. You collect eyeballs, you go public, you become a billionaire. That doesn't really quite work. Not anymore. Back then, as we found out, only the really, really great entrepreneurs survive. I do this presentation sometimes for a Stanford class, so I like to use Stanford students as the example. They are a little bit full of themselves, so I like to make fun of them. The Stanford admission rate is about 2%. So what that means is that they're about 2 standard deviations above the mean. If you're 6 standard deviation, it's 1 out of a million, right? So in China, there's a million of you. If you think you're really, really special, you're 6.5 standard deviations above the mean, and that means that's 1 out of 34 million people. And if you're 7th standard deviation, that means there's 1 of you in a country of 1 billion people. So we can safely say that people like these, the Zuckerbergs, the Dorseys, the Page, certainly not me, are people that are kind of 6 standard deviations above the mean. And that's what entrepreneurship was about back then. It was the blind leading the blind. Nobody really knew what to do, and only people who truly, truly have talent for starting companies are able to build great companies. Today, being an entrepreneur is slightly different, and that's because the dark art of being an entrepreneur has changed quite a lot. It's no longer a dark art. It is kind of like a book that tells you what to do and what to do. So what's changed? Well, the cost of starting a company had changed a lot. When I was starting BuildPoint, I spent $10 million just to buy servers and software before writing 1 line of code. Today, for $5, we can get a co-hosting and print Hello World to the World Wide Web within 10 minutes of getting started. Right? 15 years ago, that's probably 6 months of work, $10 million, and a team of 4 engineers. The second thing that changed is mega funds. Back then, the biggest VCs were about $100, $150 million, right? That's how much support it had, and they were the rock stars. Today, any random guy, right, would have enough money to spend to kind of invest in startups. And these big, big funds can put $50, $100, $200 million into a deal without blinking an eye. Right? So that means that you really have a lot of capital to actually start your own company. You don't really have to beg 100, 200,000, 200 people, one person to do everything that you need. The second thing that really happened was, even before the age of seed funds, through the first dot-com kind of crash, came these kind of, I call them mafias, right? Guys that work at eBay, Yahoo, PayPal, and make decent amount of money. And decent, I mean anywhere between $5 to $50 million. Nobody, quote unquote, special in the regular house. But what they do have is $50,000, $100,000 to give to their best friends. Right? People that they trust, that they worked with in the past, where they can give them a little bit of money to get started simply based on an idea. Just because I trust you, here's some money, anywhere from $50,000 to pass the hat to $500,000 to start a company. That did not exist anywhere in the world except for the Bay Area. The third thing, which also came from these mafias, were expertise. People knew how to start a company 5 years, 10 years later. They shared it on social media, they wrote blogs about it, papers about it, and you know what? They will actually sit down with you, grab a dinner, just like Frank Wayne said, right? They're happy to meet with you just because they want to help the next generation. Things did not happen that way 15 years ago. The end result was that there was a democratization or normalization of entrepreneurship. What did that mean? 15 years ago, being an entrepreneur was reserved for people from Stanford, quote unquote. Right? People who actually had the network, think they're really special, and have the wherewithal to kind of put things together. Today, not really. Right? You're a high school student, you can go start a company and make $100,000 a year. Great outcome. Right? Entrepreneurship now is a viable career path as much as accounting, consulting, investment banking, marketing. Right? Before, it was for people that, a little bit of a black sheep. Today, the best of the best, they want to be entrepreneurs. The second thing that happened was this frictionless sharing of information. Social media, blogs, Twitter, Facebook, messaging, WeChat. With a simple push of a button, you can ask your buddies what's a fair price for liquidation preference. Back then, you better know from a lawyer from Wilson Sissini to know how to negotiate a good deal. The next thing happened, like I just mentioned, was access to capital at all stages. You can get $50,000, you can get $500 million, You have people that will talk to you for different price. Back then, you don't really know. And the last thing that happened was VCs are not super big, right? We're just regular people trying to invest money, to make money for ourselves and for our investors. We're not this elite class anymore. The table has changed. 15 years ago, I begged for money. Today, I begged you to let me invest. That's a big difference. And the last thing that happened was that location mattered a lot less, right? When I moved to LA in 2006, the entrepreneurial ecosystem here was almost non-existent. As someone that actually have started a company, that actually have worked at an internet company called eBay back at the time, I was a bit of a hot commodity here in LA. I was nobody special in the Bay Area. There was 20,000 people just like me. But in LA, people that actually knew how to build product and launch companies were very, very rare, and that was 2006. I'll say that back then, there was maybe a group of 30, 40 kind of entrepreneurs and executives in LA that recycled through every single idea. And they were typically 30, 40 years old, guys that have done it and continue to do it and actually knows people in the valley. Today, that kind of community and ecosystem exists for anyone, right? After this conversation, I'll walk down, you can grab my phone number or my email address, and I'll talk to you and help you kind of run your company and start them. Right? That kind of resource did not exist in LA back in those days. So location matters a lot less. So what's going on in LA? Turned out after AT&T, so that was 2011, I got a little bored on kind of working for a big company. I was scared that I was going to become one of those kind of corporate robots and trying to climb my way to the top and trying to join the rat race. I always envisioned myself as a 22-year-old running an internet company, and that's what I wanted to do again. My partner, or actually my boss from eBay, which is one of the companies I worked at, was running a VC firm up in the Bay Area called Harrison Metal. Harrison Metal was one of the first ever seed fund that was launched in 2007, right before the 2008 crash. So he had a lot of experience in running a micro VC or a seed fund. He came down to LA for family reasons and grabbed me and said, hey, Will, I know you wanted to leave, but instead of starting a company and going back to the Bay Area, this is something that we should really think about. LA is a great place to start a venture firm, even better for starting a company. They are, in LA, the GDP output is about twice the size of Silicon Valley, right? And if you look at all the major unicorns out there, the Ubers, the Airbnbs of the world, their revenue from LA is 2 to 3 times larger in the Bay Area, if not the largest city in all of the US. Right? And that is because LA just have more people, more car, more money, and hopefully smarter and more ambitious people than the Bay Area one day. Right? The other thing is people like to say, oh man, Stanford engineers, Berkeley engineers. Well, it's great. Brand is important, and I'm from Stanford, so I'll give that nod, right? But what is it? The 3 of the top 10 engineering schools in the world are actually based out here in LA. They have 2. We have 3. That sounds like a bigger number to me, right? And what are those 3? Well, there's UCLA, USC, and Caltech. Not to mention Irvine, Santa Barbara, San Diego. I'm probably missing more, right? There's a lot more engineers being produced in LA than actually anywhere else. The issues in the past was they were all moving up back to the Bay Area, right? Because that's where the Google jobs are, that's where the Facebook jobs are. Today, that's very, very different. They could stay here and build a career and actually become very great engineers. And then maybe 2 to 3 years from kind of starting a company, 2 to 3 years from working at a big company, they can go start their own. And from the numbers perspective, we're almost equal from the size of the actual engineering workforce. Part of the reason is that both the defense industry and the networking telecom industry has significant engineers, employ significant engineers here in LA. And that always kind of kept a steady state here in LA. A lot of them are simply just moving towards more software orientation. The other thing is LA, from the venture return perspective, is actually, for the last 20 years, only second to the Bay Area. Right? And this is not the LA venture funds, but actually companies based in LA. And that's actually a fact that a lot of my investors in my fund did not know about until we dug up the numbers. We do better than Boston, New York, the Great Lakes of Michigan area, you name it, right? And most people would think that, wow, New York, that's a very mature ecosystem, or even Boston with MIT and Harvard. But no, we do pretty good here ourselves. We are, based on numerous statistics, already either the third or the second largest entrepreneurial ecosystem in the world. And how does that measured? That's measured based on, one, the absolute number of companies being started here in LA, and second, the entrepreneurial activity per capita. Right? In both cases, we were either 2 or 3 in almost every single kind of study that's available. So back a little bit to being an entrepreneur. Because the world has changed quite a lot, from relying on unicorns to build great companies to having an infrastructure that even if you're not that great of an entrepreneur, you have enough people helping you out, enough people that have done it in the past, that you can actually build great companies. So what does that mean? 15 years ago, you need to be special to start a company, because that's what it takes, somebody that can find the end of the road through the darkness that's starting a company. Today, everybody holds a flashlight and they can help you through. So I like to tell people to be like Pete Rose. I don't know how many know who he is, but he is the baseball player with the most number of hits in the history of Major League Baseball. And I tell entrepreneurs to be like Pete Rose, not because Pete Rose is actually a degenerate gambler, and that's what he is, but that the reason he has the most number of hits in the history of Major League Baseball is because he has the most number of at-bats, by almost twice as much than everyone else. He does not have a very high batting average. He played the game for almost 25 years, right? So he's someone that just collects chances, and he fails more than he succeeds, but it doesn't matter, because in the end, he's the guy in Major League Baseball. After millions and millions of people play the game, he's number 1 on the list. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, you can be Babe Ruth, right? And if you're special, you can be Babe Ruth. If you're not, and like me, I'm not quite special, then be like Pete Rose. Go out there and try and try and try again. Even if you fail, get back up and do it one more time. So the story here, or the outcome, is that you no longer have to be a unicorn to build a unicorn company, right? You can surround yourself with great mentors, great friends, with great investors that have kind of done this before and failed enough time. Right? You don't have to find the unicorns out there. Right? If I can help you do 2 or 3 less mistakes that I did, then I help you increase the velocity of your startup and increase the success rate for you significantly. And like I said, gather as many at-bats as you can. Iterate and improve, whether that is your career, that's your product, or that's your company. The method here is never to give up. The faster you fail, the faster you get up is more important than whether you actually win or succeed in that actual at-bat and actual try. And the last thing to remember is that it's a long road. It takes 7 to 10 years to build a company, right? It's not 12 months, 18 months to IPO and you're a billionaire, right? I remember when I started BuildPoint, within 12 months, I was worth hundreds of millions of dollars all in fake money. Not 1 cent of that I own today, right? It takes 7 to 8 years to build a company. Everything else is just a fake number. It doesn't really matter until you change the world. So that means you gotta be humble. You gotta have your eyes for today and for tomorrow. And you gotta understand what it takes to fail every day and get up every day and build a company 365 days a year for 7 years. This is not an interesting, fun thing to do. This is a career. And if you go down this path, you might have 2 tries at the best to start a company. So have the right thinking. All right. This is the end of my presentation. I actually want to open up for some questions. So I can barely see you guys given how bright this light is. But, thank you. Okay, any questions for me? Well, I'll give a generic answer. Oh, I will stand.
Yes. I have a question about the partner, how to pick up a good partner. I heard two kind difference saying that you can pick up your partner from your friends or someone you know in a conference. So based on your experience, which one would be better? Or well, actually, there's nothing about a friendship or stickiness.
So starting a company, but building a company takes 7 years, right? That's longer than the average marriage. Yeah, oh yeah, right? So if you want to go on a first date and get married, go for it, right? I'm not going to stop you. But building a company is a long road, requires lots of trust. There will be up and downs. You got to make sure whoever is standing next to you, in front of you, that you can see eye to eye, that they have the same horizon, the same thought process, and the same motivations as you. As long as that's true, yes, you can go get married in the first night. But generally, it's better to find somebody that you know, that you have built a relationship with in the past. We have seen many, many companies fail, especially in the first 12 months, from the team not getting along rather than because the product doesn't have any customers or users.
I guess I use the microphone as well. I have a very, this one here is working. Let's say that for people, one's young, one's old. For young generation, if they have idea, they don't know it's earth-shaking idea or not, how do they do the next, very next step? Because they are thinking about things all day long. And what is the very first step they should take? Another one is for people very old, like me. If I have a good idea, is there still
You're not old, we're about the same age.
Thank you very much.
So this happens to me all the time. I have a great idea in my head, and I think, oh my God, I will be a billionaire in 18 months, right? And I go to sleep, I think about it, I wake up in the morning, and all of a sudden it's not so great of an idea, right? So ideation is important. Keep on thinking about a great idea, but also think hard about the viability of the product. Entrepreneurs fall in love with their company. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to fall in love. Advisors, friends, mentors, parents, investors, our job is not to fall in love with a company like you. Our job is to help you build a great company. So your job is to go out and find as many people as you can to get feedback on idea. I know what lots of you guys will say, but like, I don't want to tell someone my idea. They're going to steal it and build my billion-dollar idea, and what's next? Well, I have an exercise for you. Come up with a great idea, go to Starbucks, and try to convince someone to quit their job and start that company. You can stay there for about 2 weeks straight, 24 hours, 7 days a week, and I will still bet $100 that you're not going to get anyone to take your idea and start your own company, right? So don't be afraid of sharing your idea, getting feedback from anyone. And literally, if you have a consumer idea, like, I have this idea that will deliver coffee to your office, on demand. Well, go to a coffee shop, sit there and ask 1,000 people and see if they will actually pay for it, right? Get out of the office. And age does not matter, right? Because that kind of market research you can do yourself. And really, it used to be that the top 40 entrepreneur executive here in LA wouldn't take your call, right? That's just not how the ecosystem was set up. Today, you can start with me. My email address is on the website. You can email me. I will respond to your email. I might not take a meeting, but I will always respond to an email. And if you have a good idea that has potential, I can hook you up with 2 or 3 more people, and those 2 people will hook you up with 2 or 3 more people. And exponentially, within 30 days, I guarantee you're going to meet 30 interesting people that will give you a good idea on whether you have something interesting to move forward with. Okay.
You're much younger, right?
Yeah. So I have 2 questions. First of all, I wanted to ask, like, in the past, people, they want to go to the biggest company like Microsoft or Fords, but right now, people, they want to start their own company. So why do you think it changed? And you know, like Asian parents, they always want you to get a good job and have a higher salary and get married. But right now, like in our generation, we think we want to start up our own company. And why do you think it changed? And second question is, why do you think entrepreneurship is so important? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll start the first question. What's changed? By the way, my parents are trying to get me to work at IBM still. So, I mean, technically, I am kind of unemployed. I'm a self-employed person. So, yeah, they still want me to work at IBM. What's changed? Well, lots of what I said changed, right? The other thing is there are examples of people who gave up everything to start a company and became very, very successful. They are celebrated in the press, they're celebrated in universities, celebrated here. And that has given our kind of, our parents, or maybe people even my generation, a different view on what's the definition of successful, right? You don't necessarily have to work for McKinsey or Goldman Sachs or for TSMC to be successful. You can have an interesting company that has tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars in revenue, and still make a difference. And that in itself is a viable and a great path, right? And I'll say this, 当一个台湾人，我们爸妈的那个 generation， 都是 entrepreneur, right? Taiwan wasn't that young, that old of a country, right? And salaries were very low. The cost of living are pretty high. So it encourages risk-taking. And my father is an entrepreneur too. So it was never something that I viewed as a path that's unattainable or a black box, right? And my thinking has always been, my father can do it. I'm smarter, better looking. I should be able to do it too. Right? And today, you guys sitting out there, you can think, geez, I'm smarter than this Will guy. I'm definitely better looking. So you too can go do it too, right? And I think that thinking has kind of permeated throughout this community, this nation, this country, the world, right? That makes it very viable for us to go start companies. What's the second part of the question?
Yeah, so why do you think entrepreneurship is so important?
Oh, it's the epitome of the American dream, right? And really, American dream, right? 在中国他们说中国梦, right? It's all the same. It's people's dreams, right? And entrepreneurship is how we move beyond the status of our educational background, our family background, our political background, our religious class, and do something above and beyond what we were meant to do, right? And that's important, right? Because what do they say, right? The pursuit of happiness, right? That we should all be equal to have that level playing ground. And entrepreneurship is how we attain and make our dreams come true. So I can't imagine a place where entrepreneurs are not celebrated and idolized, because it is the very definition of the human condition.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Am I over time yet? Last question, okay. I'm sorry for the people in the back. I really can't see you because this light is really bright.
Okay, my question is, what are some of the hardcore skills and characters that a successful entrepreneur should have?
Okay, so the first one is they are very numerical and metric-based in the way that they solve problems and create answers for the problems, right? They look at the world in math. They do not have any biases on the outcomes of the problem they're trying to solve, and they make decisions on the numbers that comes out. So number one. Number two is they're able to fail and back up without any kind of emotional baggage, right? They don't get down just because they got an F on a test. They go, I'm going to go and get an A plus the next one, and I'll average it out. So if I get 4 A pluses and 1 F, I will still have an A minus, right? I want people like that, that knows that it's not about what happened in the past, it's about what happens in the future. And then the last thing I see for successful entrepreneur is they have a little bit of a reality distortion feel, the Steve Jobs effect, right? Which is they can see the future already, and they talk about the future as if it's in present tense. They might be a little bit unrealistic, but their vision for that future is different. It's passionate. It comes from a place that is not from reading TechCrunch or talking about AR, VR, AI, bots, blah, 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 right? They understand the problem they're trying to solve, and they see a future where none of us do, right? And when I'm in one of those meetings, like, they get me excited about their business, right? And I become part of that reality distortion field. And then the next morning, I go, maybe not such a great idea. But I actually like that. I like to fall in love in the middle of a meeting when I meet an entrepreneur talking about the idea. And then the next day, I wake up from that dream and I think about what's possible, what's not possible, and what's reality. And if I can go through all those phases at the same time, it actually helps me make a great investment decision. Because an entrepreneur needs to recruit resources and employees and co-founders. And if they don't have that ability to instill that love in the people around them, then they're not going to be successful. We can't be an island, right? We got to be a nation, right? And that means that we have to be motivating other people. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, William. And right now, we're actually going to present a certificate of recognition for William for helping us share this great value of information. And for the